Hello and welcome to the Spy Collection. My name is Anastasios and in this episode we have a very rare piece of cryptographic history from World War I. This codebook from the UK. As you can see here, it says trench code, and that's how British military was referring to this type of crypto during the First World War. It was an exceptionally simple cryptographic method based on substitution that soldiers were using to quickly communicate from the trenches, either via field phones or pigeons or other means. Because of the already extremely challenging environment, those trench codebooks were very simple to use so that soldiers don't have to overthink about secure communications. We can also see that from the literally one-page long instructions for the B.A.B trench code. It had 9 guidelines. First, that it was to be used in messages of a secret nature passing by a telephone, wireless or visual signaling. Secondly, that it was okay to mix code and clear text as long as important words giving the sense of the message are concealed. Third, if the codebook is compromised, a correction has to be applied to avoid impact of future communications. How to write interrogative and negative sentences is on number 4. 5 says that enciphering numbers, dates and times is given under separate headings. 6 recommends to use frequently groups that have no meaning. 7. Headings are there to facilitate quick encoding, but sender shouldn't be confined to those. 8. What to do if the code isn't available and a coded message is received. And lastly 9. If that codebook is lost, then immediately notify the headquarters with all the details of how it got lost. Following that, we have the index, where we can easily find where the words we're interested in this codebook are located. And next we have the actual codebook. You can see the number that would be transmitted on the left and what it meant on the right. Sending entire sentences like that, with numbers, not only it was more secure, but also it made transmissions much faster and less prone to error. Also, do you remember guideline number 3 about correcting the codebook in case of compromises? Here's how such a Corrigendum looked like. And as we read, this was supposed to be destroyed after it was understood. We are very thankful that this didn't happen and we can actually share this rare piece of cryptologic history with you. Here we also read how to encipher and decipher numbers, dates and times, as well as the corrections. Of course, we've scanned both of those and you can find them in the video's description if you'd like to study them further. Now in the intro we stated that this is a very rare document, but how rare? There are less than a handful of those that are publicly available today at the time of this publication. The Australian War Memorial has a B.A.B trench code number 1 from 1916 in their collection. UK's Imperial War Museum has a copy of the B.A.B trench code number 4 from 1917, and we also found a reference from the State Archives of North Carolina in the United States, stating that they have a copy of the B.A.B trench code number 4 from 1918. And that's it. We were unable to find any other references to it, or even more so, any scanned copies that are available online. So this is quite likely, possibly one of the first times, that this rare codebook is digitally available for anyone to study. During our research, we also came across the Cypriot composer Yannis Kyriakidis, that he has composed a track inspired by this codebook. As we read, trench code consists of 3 interactive videos that act as scores for the ensemble. Each video is based on a particular codebook from the First World War, which is presented in a graphic form and encoded into musical material that is displayed on the video. A communication system is therefore set up amongst the ensemble that utilizes the same material as used in the trenches. And the second one is based on the B.A.B code. If you are interested, we'll leave a link to it in the description. Now in 2023, the book Revealing Secrets, an Unofficial History of Australian Signal Intelligence and the Advent of Cyber, we read, by 1918, when 4 cryptographic systems were used for frontline communications traffic, 2 were cryptographically weak and known to be compromised, the Playfair Cipher and the B.A.B trench code, and the other two were considered exceedingly complex to use. It doesn't go into more detail on how B.A.B trench code was compromised, whether it was stolen codebooks or something else, but that statement isn't an arbitrary assumption. It was known at least since 1992, when the British Army and Signals Intelligence during the First World War was released, stating that two of these, the Playfair Cipher and the 4th edition of B.A.B trench code, were cryptographically weak and known to be compromised. The only tolerably safe system possessed by the Army, the two versions of the field cipher, were exceedingly complex to use. Actually, if you do know exactly how the B.A.B trench code was compromised, then please let us know. We also read here that people were expected to destroy those documents, and we find another confirmation of that in the 1928 publication, From Rideau to Rhine and Back, the 6th Field Company and the Battalion Canadian Engineers in the Great War, stating that B.A.B trench codebooks were turned into the 6th and all lists of station code calls destroyed. Okay, let's summarize. So we know that Australia, the UK, and Canada were using those, that the number 4 edition of the trench code was compromised, although we don't know exactly how, and that the decommissioning process was for all of the codebooks to be returned and or get destroyed. That said, we saw this codebook, how it was used, when it was used, if it was compromised or not, and how important it is to document it, since it's almost lost from the cryptographic history domain. Also, it's very clear why it was called trench code, since it was used by soldiers fighting in trenches. But who created it, and why it was even called B.A.B? We find answers to those questions from this 1921 book titled The 33rd Division in France and Flanders, 1915-1919, written by Lieutenant Colonel Graham Seton Hutchison, who actually served in the British 33rd Division from November 1915 to June 1919. He wrote that the division suffered great loss in the death of Lieutenant Colonel the Honourable H. Ritchie, DSO, commanding the 1st Cameronians, who had been wounded 3 times during the past 3 weeks and now was finally killed, and in the death through shell fire of Lieutenant Colonel B.A.B. Butler of the Divisional Artillery. Lieutenant Colonel Butler will always live in history as the author of the B.A.B. Code, universally used throughout our army during the war as the official secret trench code, and thus named from his own initials. He had served in the field from Mons until the end, a very gallant and brilliant officer. So now we know not only why it's named B.A.B. trench code, but also how its creator lost his life. And with that, we are closing this episode, which hopefully sheds some light into the history of the B.A.B. trench code, a once highly secretive method for military communications, which today is almost completely lost in time. Another piece of the cryptologic history puzzle, and another reason why nothing is as it seems.